Today, I'll cover three key developments. The first, Hyundai Motor India and Indian Oil Corporation's partnership to test hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. Second, Next Hydrogen's $5 million financing to enhance electrolyzer technology. And third, Hyundai's investment in Pajarito Powder, a New Mexico startup focused on hydrogen materials. I'll explore the technical details, environmental benefits like reducing NOx, SOx, and PM2.5 emissions, and the economic implications. All of this on today's Hydrogen Podcast. Our first story comes from the Hans India, published on April 22nd of this year. Hyundai Motor India and Indian Oil Corporation have signed an MOU to explore the viability of hydrogen fuel cell vehicles for mass use in India. They've handed over a Hyundai Nexo hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicle, or FCEV, to Indian Oil for a 2-year study covering 40,000 kilometers under real-world Indian conditions to evaluate its longevity, operational reliability, and total cost of ownership, simulating private usage. And let's dive into the technical aspects. The Hyundai Nexo uses a 95 kilowatt fuel cell stack with a 60% efficiency paired with a 1.56 kilowatt hour battery for hybrid operation. This per Hyundai's specs. It consumes about 1 kilogram of hydrogen per 50 miles, with a 666 kilometer or 414 mile range on a 6.33 kilogram tank, stored at 700 bar. In India's hot, humid, and dusty conditions, this test will stress the fuel cell's membrane and cooling systems, this per industry data. The Nexo produces zero tailpipe emissions, so no NOx, SOx, or PM2.5, unlike hydrocarbon vehicles, which emit 0.5 to 1 gram per mile of NOx and 0.1 to 0.2 grams per mile of PM2.5, this per EPA data. If 10,000 Nexos were deployed in India, each driving 20,000 kilometers a year, they would consume 4,000 tons of hydrogen, avoiding 4,000 tons of NOx and 800 tons of SOx compared to diesel, which is significant in a country where transportation emits 1.5 million tons of NOx yearly. And now let's look at the economics, with a critical eye on assumptions. The Nexo's cost is likely $60,000 per vehicle based on global FCEV pricing trends. Hydrogen at $5 to $6 a kilogram, which could be a realistic price, means 400 kilograms per year per vehicle costs $2,000 to $2,400 annually. For 10,000 vehicles, that's 4,000 tons of hydrogen, or $8 to $9.6 million a year. Scaling to 10,000 vehicles requires a $600 million investment in vehicles, plus $50 to $100 million for refueling stations, 5 to 10 stations at $5 to $10 million each, this per DOE data. If hydrogen is produced via electrolysis using India's growing solar capacity, production costs are $3 to $4 a kilogram, leaving a $1 to $3 per kilogram margin, or $4 to $12 million profit for suppliers. However, India's sparse refueling network, which is fewer than 10 stations nationwide, means high initial infrastructure costs, which could delay scalability, a risk often downplayed in optimistic narratives. Still, this partnership could create 500 to 1,000 jobs in manufacturing and infrastructure, this per industry benchmarks, boosting India's green economy while addressing particulate emissions. Our second story comes from The Star, published on April 22nd. Next Hydrogen, a Canadian company, has received $5 million in working capital debt financing to accelerate its electrolyzer technology development and market expansion. The company focuses on green hydrogen production, aiming to improve efficiency and scalability for industrial and energy applications. And the technology is promising. Next Hydrogen develops PEM electrolyzers, which split water into hydrogen and oxygen using electricity, ideally from renewables. Their systems claim 10 to 15% higher efficiency than standard PEM electrolyzers, potentially reducing energy use to 45 kilowatt hours per kilogram from 50 kilowatt hours per kilogram, this per industry benchmarks. A 1 megawatt electrolyzer at this efficiency produces 500 kilograms of hydrogen daily, or 200 tons a year, enough to power 50 heavy-duty trucks for 500 miles each, considering 1 kilogram per 50 miles. The process emits zero NOx, SOx, or PM2.5, unlike gray hydrogen production, which emits 1.5 million tons of NOx and 500,000 tons of PM2.5 annually in the U.S., this per EPA data. For example, 200 tons of green hydrogen can produce 1,000 tons of ammonia, avoiding 10,000 tons of NOx versus gray hydrogen. Canada's abundant hydropower makes it ideal, though water use could strain drier regions. Economically, the $5 million financing supports Next Hydrogen's R&D and market entry. A 1 megawatt electrolyzer costs $1.5 million per industry data, producing 200 tons a year. At $5 to $6 per kilogram, that's $1 to $1.2 million in annual revenue, with production costs at $3 per kilogram, this using Canada's cheap hydropower. The profit would be $400,000 to $600,000 per year per megawatt, or a 25 to 40% margin. Scaling up to 10 megawatts, or a $15 million investment, yields 2,000 tons a year, or a $4 to $6 million profit. Also creating 50 to 100 jobs in manufacturing and installation per benchmarks. However, the narrative of electrolyzer breakthroughs often ignores scaling challenges. Global capacity is only 1 gigawatt this year, this per IEA data, and high upfront costs could deter adoption without subsidies. Still, this financing positions Next Hydrogen to reduce production emissions, supporting a cleaner hydrogen supply chain for applications like those in India. Our third story comes from the Albuquerque Journal, published on April 14th of this year. Hyundai Motor Corporation has invested in Pajarito Powder, an Albuquerque-based startup specializing in hydrogen materials, signaling continued global interest in hydrogen technology. Pajarito Powder focuses on advanced electrocatalysts and catalyst support materials for fuel cells and electrolyzers, aiming to improve performance and durability. Pajarito Powder develops platinum-based catalysts and carbon supports for PEM fuel cells and electrolyzers. Their catalysts reduce platinum loading by 30 to 40%, improving efficiency, and extend fuel cell lifespan from 5,000 to 8,000 hours in automotive applications, this per industry reports. In electrolyzers, their materials could drop energy use to 48 kilowatt hours per kilogram from 50 kilowatt hours per kilogram. A 1 megawatt electrolyzer using these materials produces 510 kilograms a day, powering 51 trucks daily and avoiding 510 tons of NOx yearly versus diesel. In the U.S., where hydrocarbon-based hydrogen production emits 1.5 million tons of NOx, these innovations accelerate the shift to green hydrogen, minimizing PM 2.5 emissions. New Mexico's sunny climate supports solar-powered electrolysis, though water scarcity remains a challenge, this per global trends. Economically, Hyundai's investment, likely $5 to $10 million, based on typical startup funding rounds, helps Pajarito scale production. Their catalysts reduce fuel cell costs by 10 to 15%, dropping the Nexo's fuel cell stack cost from $12,000 to between $10,200 and $10,800, this per DOE estimates. For 10,000 vehicles, that's $18 to $24 million in savings, or a 3 to 4% reduction in total vehicle cost. In electrolyzers, a 1 megawatt system producing 208 tons per year at $5 to $6 a kilogram generates between $1 and $1.25 million in revenue, with production costs at $3 per kilogram, where solar is at 4 cents per kilowatt hour, yielding $416,000 to $624,000 profit per year per megawatt. Scaling to 10 megawatts creates 20 to 30 jobs in Albuquerque per benchmarks. Now, the narrative of material breakthroughs often overlooks slow adoption. Catalyst production is still small scale, and global demand outpaces supply, this per the IEA. But this investment strengthens the hydrogen ecosystem, reducing costs and emissions for applications worldwide. All right, that's it for me, everyone. If you have a second, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a good review on whatever platform it is that you listen to. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, YouTube, whatever it is. That would be a tremendous help to the show. And as always, if you ever have any feedback, you're welcome to email me directly at info@thehydrogenpodcast.com. So until next time, keep your eyes up and honor one another.